Okay, so today is the session 3 of the first semester on this class on braided fusion category. So we are still in the introduction part. So now we are discussing the organization of the paper we are covering in great details, because it will be very helpful to get a global understanding of the structure of the class and what we want to do. Okay, so let me just read what we did about section 2 preliminaries. So it reviews the background material from the theory of fusion category. For a braided fusion category C without a fixed spherical structure, the notion of S matrix is undefined. Instead, a similar concept, the S tilde matrix, is introduced. The category C is defined as non-degenerate if its S tilde matrix is non-degenerate, which means invertible. Okay, so let's continue. So we will state and prove a proposition providing equivalence reformulation of non-degeneracy. One regarding a Muger center. So let me write that. So this will be called proposition 3.7. Formulate two other conditions. Conditions that are equivalent to the non-degeneracy of C, one of which the triviality of Muger center, one of which the triviality of Muger center C prime. So the notation C. So in the talk by Alexei Davidov, he called that the symmetric center, and he denoted like that. So you have several notation. He denoted symmetric center of C. So here we noted like that on Muger center, etc. Okay, so the triviality of Muger center, so which is this reformulation is already known in the premodular case by Bruguière, but without spherical structure, I guess this result is in this paper. So it is well known in the case of premodular categories by the French mathematician Alain Bruguière. And he proved that in 2000. So to prove this proposition, we'll use a notion of centralizer due to Muger. So Muger notion of centralizer display a central goal in this block. Okay, so this is what we will do in section 2. So section 2, that's now in section 3, so we will introduce the notion of centralizer due to Muger. So, section 3. Yeah, I went to the room, but it was full of people.
Oh, okay, yeah. Then
I checked the calendar, and no one is supposed to be there even before me.
So you did not say anything to them?
Wait, there are 20 people. It's okay. I can go to my office.
Yeah.
So section 3. Centralizer in and non-degeneracy of braided fusion category. And non-degeneracy of braided fusion category. Fusion category. Okay. So Muger centralizer was defined by Muger in the spherical case. In fact, in the spherical case, but this section will generalize that without spherical assumption. So it extends Muger result on centralizers 2003 to braided fusion category that are not necessarily non-degenerate or premodular. To braided fusion category. So remember, there are two aspects of generalization: to have the spherical structure or not, which means that the braided fusion category is premodular, or to be non-degenerate or not. When you combine the two, you have a modular fusion category. As I said last time, many result was proved assuming one of these two assumptions, but in fact, most of them, or many of them, can be proved without any such assumption, and this is the pre-goal in some sense of this paper. Before the main goal is the notion of core, but the pre-goal is to do that. Two braided fusion categories that are not necessarily non-degenerate or premodular. Non-degenerate or premodular. And the concept of, so we will need the concept, we will use the concept of projective centralizer. Yeah, the concept of projective centralizer is also introduced and studied. Projective centralizer. So maybe, I don't know if, maybe, yeah. I don't remember if you need projective centralizer to generalize the Muger result, or if it is another component of this section. Anyway, we will see that later. Section 4. Section 4 will be So one of the most important section is the section 5. Section 4 is equivalentization and disequivalentization. And section 5 will be the core of a Brodie fusion category. So this is in this section where we introduce the main tool called equivalentization and disequivalentization. Equivalentization and so in fact you have a process and the other way, one way, the other way. Equivalentization. Okay. So what this is about? So it's mutually inverse construction. So it address to mutually inverse construction. Mutually inverse construction. So equivalentization and disequivalentization. So let me copy and paste that. Like that. Okay. So again, this idea comes from Bruguière and Muger. So following the idea of Bruguière, so paper in 2000, and Muger the same year, not the same paper. So it is shown that the data of a fusion category with an action of a finite group is equivalent to a fusion category over a Tanakian category RepG. So there is a notion. So on one hand, you have a finite group acting on a fusion category, and we will see that it is equivalent to define a fusion category over a Tanakian category. So in some sense, it's like the Tanakian category RepG plays the same role as a field in some sense. So you are defining it over that. So in general, a fusion category is always defined over a vec in some sense, if you like, but there is a way to generalize this process, and you can define it over a Tanakian category, for example, RepG of this form. And there is a correspondence between the existence of such a group action and to be over a rep of this group. So this is what this what we write. So in following this idea of these two mathematicians, it is shown that the data of a fusion category with an action of a finite group G is equivalent to a fusion category with an over the Tanakian category RepG. We will define in details later what is the meaning of for a fusion category to be over the Tanakian category. To a fusion category C over Tanakian category. Rep G. There is an additional assumption. We need the composition of this functor to be the following functor to be fully faithful. So where the composition. So you start from rep G. So rep G, it go to the center of the category. So the category C is a fusion category, so it's not necessarily braided. Remember that a braided category embed into the center, but rep G is braided, and I guess you can define a functor from rep G to, I don't know if it is an embedding. I don't remember. And then you apply the forgetful functor. So we will see later in more details what is this. So is it an embedding? So is it true that for every Tanakian subcategory embed into the center? Or is it true more generally that every braided fusion category embed into the center? I'm not sure. But at least we have so I guess for Tanakian maybe it's true you have such an embedding. I'm not completely sure, but we will see that later. So this composition should be fully faithful. Is fully faithful. Faithful. Okay. Okay. So what next? The next paragraph we will develop a little bit from going to go from one to the other. So the passage from an action of G to a category over rep G is achieved by taking the category of J equivariant object, and the reverse process called the disequivalentization involves taking the fiber category. So fiber category, I guess we already mentioned that in some previous subsection of the introduction. So one way is so for going for action of G category over rep G, you consider the category of J equivariant object. So we will design that later in details. And the other way, so the converse of equivariant is disequivalentization, and it involves the fiber category we use. You remember the fiber category was the notion which was we used to define the core. So it's a kind of Deligne tensor product with respect to the to the Tanakian subcategory or something like that. So the passage from an action of G to a category over rep G is achieved by taking the category of J equivariant object. We will explain later in details what does it mean. And the reverse process. The reverse process called de-equivalentization. Equivalentization. Involve taking the fiber category. Involve taking the fiber category. We already mentioned before. And this, this notion of fiber category will be introduced in this specific subsection. Anyway. Okay, next. So the correspondence also applies. This correspondence also applies to group action on braided and premodular categories as described. Okay. So such a correspondence also apply if you assume some braiding structure. So this is the next sentence is saying that the braided structure deal. You can put the braided structure, you get a similar correspondence. So this correspondence also apply to group action on braided and premodular categories. And this will be described by the future theorem 4.918. I describe in theorem 4.19. We will see later. So the disequivalentization. So in the premodular case, the disequivalentization corresponds to the notion of modularization introduced by Müger and by Bruguière and Müger in 2000. So 25 years ago, Müger and Bruguière introduced a notion of modularization for premodular category. And this modularization in this paper generalized without premodular assumption as what we call disequivalentization. Okay, so disequivalentization equal modularization. So now, I guess in the literature, in the modern, after this paper by Greenfeld et al., most people no more use the notion of the name modularization, they use the name disequivalentization. So equivalentization, disequivalentization, the core. So sometimes there are some related notion. So from physics, I already mentioned before, called the condensation. So we have to be careful because you have you have to be careful what condensation corresponds to exactly. But we will mention that later. So again, you can use notion of condensation for people which are close to mathematical physics can use the word condensation, but I guess in this class or in this paper we are covering, they don't use the word condensation. Okay, so I described. Okay, so for premodular category, premodular categories, disequivalentization coincide with modularization of Bruguière-Müger. Disequivalentization coincide with modularization. Modularization as introduced again, the same two guys, Bruguière 2000 and Müger. So I guess they introduced, I don't know, they found that independently or they discussed, I don't know, I don't remember. Okay. So So these two approach provide two complementary way to study braided fusion category. One based on the Tannakian subcategory and the other based on group action. So you have two ways. If you consider a braided fusion category, you can consider Tannakian subcategory. This is one way. Group action, this is another way. And as we mentioned before, these two ways are more or less equivalent. So this framework provides two complementary ways to study the structure of braided fusion category. Of braided fusion categories. One based on Tannakian subcategory. One based on Tannakian subcategories. And another based on group action. And another based on group action. That will be discussed in subsection 4.2. In subsection 4.2. Okay, so last paragraph regarding section 4. The section 4.4 describes the structure of braided fusion categories containing a subcategory REP-G viewed as equivalentization of braided G-cross categories. So we will explain that later. So describes the structure braided fusion categories containing a subcategory REP-G Tannakian viewed as equivalentization of a braided G-cross category. So we will define that later. View as equivalentization of braided G-cross category. Braided G-cross categories. This was introduced initially by Kirillov in 2002, Neuger 2004, and Tourayev in 2000. And the end of section 4 is dedicated to the characterization, so as we already mentioned before, the characterization of the center of a pointed fusion category. So the center of pointed fusion categories are completely characterized. Remember the notion of Lagrangian category, etc. So at the end of section 4, the characterization of the center of pointed fusion categories. So as we already mentioned, as mentioned in subsection 1.4.1 of the introduction, this characterization is established. Okay. So that will be section 4. So now section 5 will be the most important part. Is about the core of braided fusion category. The core of the braided fusion category. Okay. So, this is the main contribution of the work. So, present the main new contribution of this work. Paper. Okay. So this section will define and study the core as it is introduced, as it is mentioned before in subsection 132, and it will introduce the notion, the class of weakly anisotropic braided fusion category. So as we mentioned, the core of a braided fusion category has a specific property to be weakly anisotropic. So, which, as we already mentioned, it's almost that he has no Tanakian subcategory. So this is anisotropic, as I mentioned before. But weakly anisotropic, it means it has no Tanakian subcategory, which are, I don't remember, stable by braided autoequivalence or something like that. So weakly anisotropic. So the core is always weakly anisotropic. So the core of a braided fusion category C, as mentioned in subsection 132, is defined and studied the class of weakly anisotropic braided fusion category is introduced. And the class of weakly anisotropic braided fusion category is introduced. Okay. So here we recall the definition. These categories like non-trivial Tanakian subcategories stable under all braided autoequivalence. These categories like, by definition, non-trivial Tanakian subcategories stable under all braided autoequivalence. Otherwise, if you don't have this stable, etc., it's just anisotropic. So stable under all braided autoequivalence. Autoequivalence. And so we already mentioned the theorem 524, 523, which was stated without proof, providing a kind of a decomposition by doing tensor product and simple or pointed or something like that. So these two theorems explain why this notion is reasonable. You can read. In fact, you can. The first theorem says that you can reduce to anisotropic, and the second theorem says that there is a decomposition by simple. By the tensor product of simple or something like that. We mentioned that before. So theorem 5.24 and 5.23, as already mentioned before, as already mentioned in subsection 1 through 2, explain why it is reasonable to study the structure of this category. It is reasonable to study the structure of this categories. Okay, the next section is about Gauss sum. Section 6. Gauss sums. What that? So remember, it was, I think we mentioned before, it was related to the central charge. So you need the notion of Gauss sum to define the central charge, but in fact, in this paragraph, we will not talk. We will talk about central charge. So Gauss sum of a premodular category. Okay. So this section discuss the Gauss sum of premodular category. So here we assume premodular. The Gauss sums of premodular categories. So this notion exists in group theory. So it generalizes from premetric group. Generalizing classical Gauss sum for premetric group. So remember the notion of pointed braided fusion category is completely characterized by premetric group. Okay. So we will make the pause now. Okay. So there is a notion of Gauss sum for premetric group, and the notion for premodular category is just a generalization of that. So we already mentioned the notion of invariance of central charge in subsection 142, and this will be proved here. So the invariance of the central charge of a premodular category, as mentioned in subsection 142. So what did we say? 142. The invariance of the central charge. So theorem 616 establish a relationship between Gauss sum of a premodular category and that of a fiber category. Rien. As a consequence, they show that the central charge for the category of the fire functor are identical. So this is what I mean by the invariance. Okay, is proven. So the invariance is proven here, in this section. So if you don't assume the spherical structure, so here we say it should be premodular. So if you don't assume spherical structure, so if you just have braided, the notion of Gauss sum is not defined. But we will mention a notion. So you don't have the spherical structure, but if you assume it is non-degenerate and with integral Frobenius per dimension, then you will introduce a notion of Gauss-Frobenius parent sum. So in this case, even if you don't have spherical structure, if it is non-degenerate and integral or weakly integral, you have a notion of Gauss-Frobenius parent sum. So this is what is written in the introduction of the paper, but here I added some personal comment, and we will see later if it is relevant or not. So in EGNO book, so published 5 years later, we know, so I don't know if this result was known for this during this paper, Deinfeld et al. In 2010 or not, but in EGNO book, we know that a weakly integral fusion category, which is the meaning of to have an integral Frobenius per dimension, is always pseudo-unitary, which always admits a spherical structure. So the case we mentioned for Gauss-Frobenius parent sum, in fact, a spherical structure always exists, so you can always have a premodular structure. So you can always apply the Gauss sum. So I don't know if this result of EGNO book was not known before, or if they're just both, or if there is a reason to ignore the spherical structure coming from the pseudo-unitary fusion structure coming from the weakly integral structure. So I'm not sure whether this was done on purpose, or if this is just that this result in EGNO book was not known. So we will clarify that later. Okay, so let me write this. So in the case where a braid fusion category make a spherical structure, the concept Gauss sum is not defined. However, if C is non-degenerate and so what we now call weakly integral so I put it in green because it is not written like that in the paper, and it's Frobenius parent dimension is integral. So this section will introduce a modified notion called Gauss-Frobenius parent sum. Introduce a modification called the Gauss-Frobenius parent sum. Okay. And let me write my comment, which is not in the book, in the paper. So comment. Since every weekly integral or weekly integral, but fusion category is pseudo-unitary. So this is EGNO 15 proposition 965. So pseudo-unitary means the categorical dimension equals the Frobenius power dimension. And since every pseudo-unitary has a spherical structure, unitary fusion category admit spherical structure, and this is proposition 951. We deduce that weakly integral braided fusion category should always be pre-modular. So I wrote should instead of must because I have a little doubt, because here maybe maybe the spherical structure should be compatible with the braiding. I don't remember. I don't think so, but let me be a little bit doubtful and put should and something like that. But I guess you don't need any compatibility, but I'm not 100% sure, so let's just write it like that. Okay, so now, so this is the end of the main sections of the paper. But in fact, the paper, 1/3 of the paper are appendix. So we will now we will summarize what will be done in the appendix. So let me write 1/3 of the paper we are covering are appendices. So let me describe all these appendix. So, appendix A, premetric group and their Gauss sum. Premetric groups and their Gauss sum. So you see in the section 6 we say the notion of Gauss sum generalized from premetric group. In fact, this the Gauss sum from premetric group will be recalled in this appendix. So it contains. So I don't know if we will cover the appendix also. The goal is to cover up to section 6. So if we have, I don't know if we will be able to cover up to section 6 in one semester, and certainly not. But so if we need 2 semesters to go up to section 6, and if the remaining times we will talk about the appendix, otherwise the appendix will not be a priority. It contains basic results on quadratic forms on finite abelian groups. So basic results on quadratic forms on finite abelian groups. And most of these results are known. Was known before this. So just a review of what is known before this paper. So that's all for Appendix A. Appendix B, we'll talk about Ising category. And what is Ising category? This is just what is Ising category? It's a non-pointed fusion category of Frobenius parent dimension 4. So this will consider the non-pointed fusion category of Frobenius parent dimension 4 and classify all the possible body structure on them. Categories. So Ising category, so notion Ising, I guess, was a physicist, I guess. So there is this kind of maybe phenomenon, maybe condensed matter physics, I don't know. Ising is the name Ising, maybe appear in condensed matter physics. So maybe it's a physicist in this kind of this topic. So this section provides a summary of known facts about Ising category. Provide summary of facts about Ising category. And in fact, remember that Ising category are non-pointed fusion category of Frobenius parent dimension 4. And in fact, we will see that at least we have no choice but to have 3 objects, 2 of dimension 1 and 1 of dimension square root of 2. And we will classify the braided structure on them. Also the modular structure, etc. Next appendix. Appendix. So it's the summary of appendix are very, very fast. So there is a name very hard to pronounce here. So Altshuler-Brugger characterization of centralizer. The Altshuler-Brugger characterization of centralizer. And this is so the summary for this appendix say no more information, but that this will be used as a technical result in section 3. So it will be a technical tool in section 3. So section 3 for centralizer and non-degeneracy. So here, somewhere here, the Altshuler-Brugger characterization will be used. And this will be described in this appendix. So it recall. Characterization of centralizer in braided fusion category due to these two guys, Altschuler and Bruguière. So I guess it's a common paper, 2001. As I said, with the key technical tool in section 3. Used in the proof in section 3. Okay. So there remain only 3 appendix, and then we can start the content of the course. So appendix D about pointed braided category and premetric group. Pointed braided category and premetric group. So in fact, this appendix will offer something new, not a new result, but an alternative proof. So there is a result by Joyal and Street, quite old result in 1993, stating that every premetric group arises from a pointed braided fusion category. So this very old result, 30 years old result, will be proved alternatively in this appendix, and maybe hopefully the proof will maybe more modern or shorter. I don't know. This proof may have some reason. It offers an alternative proof of theorem by Joyal and Street, very famous people in this topic, which state that every premetric group arises from a pointed braided fusion category. So I guess we mentioned that in some previous subsection of the introduction. The notion of braided fusion category can be seen as a generalization of the notion of premetric group. And in fact, every so there is a notation like that. So you have G with Q, etc. We can. This is a way. VGQ is a complete characterization of pointed braided fusion category. Okay, so second last appendix is appendix E. Extension of group by braided GR category. So this looks a little bit technical. Extension of groups by braided GR categories. What this would be about. So it introduces the notion of extension of a group by a GR category, also known as a categorical group. It shows that in the case of pointed category with a faithful grading, 2F concept of a braided G cross category is equivalent to the idea of a central extension of a group by a braided GR category due to Carrasco-Segarra. Okay. Introduce notion of extensions of a group by a GR category. So this is also called categorical groups, right? Yeah, known as a categorical group. So I don't know if we will use that in the course or not, but if we use that somewhere, we will recall the definition, but from here, I don't want. So it shows that in the case of pointed categories, we face full grading. 2F concept of a braided G-cross category, as we mentioned before, is equivalent to the idea of a central extension of a group by a braided GR category. So 2IF. So sorry if it is a little bit boring, this paragraph, but it's almost finished, and we will soon the course will soon be more usual. We'll almost finish the introduction. So 2F concept of a braided G-crossed category is equivalent to the idea of a central extension of a group by a braided GR category due to Carrasco-Segarra, 1995. Okay, and last appendix, and the summary will be very short. Appendix F, complexified Grothendieck-Ring and fusion subcategory. Complexified Grothendieck-Ring and fusion subcategory. And this short appendix will prove that a full subcategory of a fusion category that is closed under tensor product is automatically rigid. So this will be proved, this will be used to, this technical result will be used to prove that a fusion subcategory is also a fusion category. A fusion subcategory, as we will define soon, in the next section. A priori, the definition of a fusion category do not say that it is a fusion category. But this technical in appendix prove that it is really a fusion category. So we prove that a full subcategory of fusion category that is closed under tensor product is automatically rigid. Okay, so that's end of the introduction. So let's start the preliminaries. So preliminaries, section 2. So we will start that background, fusion category, fusion subcategory, braided, S matrix, S style matrix, and several reformulation of non-degeneracy. Okay. So, two preliminaries. Okay, so now the course will be more usual and hopefully less boring for people who don't like to read the introduction. I know there are people who don't read the introduction. It's very strange. Okay. So this section provides an overview of key definition and result related to fusion categories and braided fusion categories. Following, so Bakalov-Kirillov, Deligne, Etinghoff-Nitsche, Shostrik, Galaki-Nitsche, Joyal-Strict. So this section provides an overview of key definition and result related to fusion categories and braided fusion categories. Primarily following the following reference. So Bakalov, 2001, Deligne 2002, Etinghoff-Nitsche, Shostrik, Etinghoff-Nitsche, Shostrik 2005. Another paper by Galaki-Nitsche. I don't write the title of the paper because, in fact, you can find if you search for the author and the year. Most of the time, there will be a single paper, so there is no confusion possible. Most of the time, so as you can have two. Joyal-Strict, 1983. Okay. So these are the big name for this topic. Okay. So the course can really start now, even if what we did before was useful. So throughout this work, all categories are assumed to be over an algebraically closed field K of characteristic 0. Throughout this work, all categories are assumed to be over an algebraically closed field algebraically closed field K of characteristic 0. Caractéristique 0. Okay. So, subsection 2.1, basics on fusion category. Basics on fusion categories. Okay. So remember that the concept of fusion categories and pointed fusion categories were introduced in the introduction. So now we will just introduce the notion of fusion subcategories, and we will explain that there are also fusion categories by the appendix F. So the concept of fusion categories and pointed fusion categories were introduced in the introduction. So what is a fusion subcategory? Fusion subcategory of the fusion category C. Fusion subcategory of a fusion category C is a full tensor subcategory. Is a full tensor subcategory. Subcategory C prime included in C, satisfying some condition I will mention, but before I will briefly recall what we mean by full tensor subcategory. So satisfying the condition I will write, but first what is full? So full mean so the first subcategory maybe. So subcategory here, this is very easy. The object in C prime are in C. So object in C prime are in C. Full mean that the home space are the same. Home space between two objects for C prime is the same as in C, so we keep the home space, and tensor mean that if X and Y are in C prime, then X tensor Y is also in C prime. Okay. So it's a full tensor subcategory, satisfying some condition. But if you have an object in C, so if an object in C is isomorphic to a direct summand of an object in C prime, then this object belongs also to C prime. So, okay. So what does it mean? So you take an object, it means that if you take an object in C prime, it means that so an object in C prime is an object in C, and every component of this object in C prime is also in C prime. So it is in C because the C is it's, I don't know, additive category, but it is also in C prime. So the condition is saying that it's a semi-simple, so you can just say that C prime is stable by taking sub-object or something like that, or simple by taking the component of sub-object. Because you are in semi-simple case, it's equivalent to say that C prime is stable by sub-object, so by sub-object of C. So you have an object in C prime, it's an object in C. All the sub-objects of this object in C are also sub-object in C prime. So yeah. It's a complicated way to say something intuitively very, very easy. So satisfying the condition where is it? That if an object X in C is isomorphic to direct summand of an object in C prime, then X must also belong to C prime. So as an additive, and I added semi-simple, but I did not write semi-simple, but fusion is semi-simple, but I don't know if you need semi-simple in this statement, but at least it's easier with, as an additive semi-simple category, C prime is generated by some simple object. Is generated by some simple object of C. So in fact, a fusion subcategory is more or less the same thing as taking a subset of the set of simple objects up to isomorphism. So this is exactly the same thing. So let me write that. Grossly speaking, the data of a fusion subcategory is equivalent, so is the same thing as the data of a subset of the set of simple objects in C up to isomorphism, something like that. Grossly speaking, there are always this question of strictness or something like that, but grossly speaking, so not all subsets work, but a subset, in fact, I already discussed that last semester. A subset such that when you make a tensor product of two simple in this subset, it decomposes into simple in this subset. So it's some sort of fusion subset. Anyway, you can write, you can think about which definition you want. We see more or less saying the same thing. Okay. So by the appendix, we know that a fusion subcategory as defined like that is a fusion category because it's rigid. So it is known So C corollary F7. So in appendix F, we may mention, we may do later or not, depend on the time we have, that every fusion subcategory is rigid, meaning it is implying, it's not meaning because implying it is itself a fusion category. Okay. Okay. So there remain 2 minutes. So just for last sentence. So given a fusion category C and a collection of objects S in C, the fusion subcategory generated by S is defined as the smallest fusion subcategory containing S. So given a fusion category C and a collection of objects S in C, the fusion subcategory generated by S is, by definition, the smallest fusion subcategory containing S. I guess it will be enough for today. Tomorrow, we will start by the definition 2.1 about image of a tensor function. But we'll start by that tomorrow. So image of tensor functor, etc. And then section 2.2 will be adjoint subcategory of fusion category. And section 2.3 will be quite short. The section 2.3 will be the universal grading. And this, we will see the grading and universal grading in great details, and we will prove, so in this subsection 2.3 tomorrow, we will prove our first result, okay, regarding universal grading. So see you tomorrow. Oh no, let me put that here. It's strange otherwise. Okay.